Hi, Bettina. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, lovely to be here, Michelle. Thank you for inviting me.
Very welcome. Bettina, would you like to start by telling us who you are and your experience?
Okay, well, my name's Bettina Friend. I've been in the retirement sector for probably more decades than I'd like to remember, and through a variety of different modules where we've, different retirement developments where they've been a combination of units and villas or just straight villas or vertical, because I've been in the southeast Queensland area, and so when they're in a city, they're always vertical because can't get the land to go with them. So yes, it's been a very interesting journey.
Okay. So how did you get started with retirement villages? How did that come about for you?
I was actually working with an Anglican parish at the time, and then the retirement development was just down the road, well, in the same suburb, let's say, and the demographic was more to that retirement age. So the particular village or community that I started off in was a vertical village, and with mature people, because it's a mature area, and people coming into the retirement sector, but high end professionals. So I was introduced to it by an invitation, and I knew a lot of the people that were at that in that. Well, what should I say? Well, in that suburb, because I lived in it as well.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah, it was very and it was. How do you say that? It was. Yeah, it happened. It just happened.
Organically.
Organic, that's
yes.
the word I'm
One
looking
thing led
for.
to another.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
okay.
yes, so that was quite a few years ago, and that was, very...
Okay. So obviously with a few decades of experience, as you've said, in this industry, how have you noticed it change over the years, the industry in general with retirement villages? What sort of changes have you seen?
Well, there's probably been quite a few. The Act number 1 has
The Retirement Villages
REACH
Act, yes.
has become a very supportive and
towards residents.
Secure, only
Yes.
toward, that's what it's all about.
Yes.
It's about for the residents, and I think that's a very comforting thing for the residents when they're looking at the possibility of moving into the retirement sector, because it is a big decision, and also that it's not necessarily a decision that they feel that they really want to make. It's more of a not quite have to, but you need to consider those things because they're not going to be as footloose and fancy free, and that they need that support system in there. So yes, I've seen a lot of changes in that. Probably the mindset is another way of looking at it, because retirement villages aren't aged care facilities.
They're certainly not.
And that's, I think, the way that they've been presented, whether it's in the media or by word of mouth, and possibly by some of the operators themselves. They are not. They're resort style, and they're a home. They're somebody's home, and it's dignified.
Yes.
So I've seen that as probably a one of the big things, that it's a dignified way of going into a new home. It's a home, whether in what form it comes in, whether it's a unit, whether it's a condo, whether it's the penthouse and the big one at the top, or whether it's a villa. It's a home. It's somebody's home. It's not an institution, and I think that's probably one of the things that was giving it a connotation that was not correct.
Okay. So what do you think, when you spoke about that, you mentioned the media, how do you think the media has hindered or helped the perception of retirement villages over the years?
I suppose just before we're saying about the inquiry, that was one of the things that certainly made a difference.
Yeah.
not necessarily always presented in the most accurate of forms, let's say. So a lot of the information, well, not a lot, but a considerable amount of the information that comes out is misinterpreted. It's, I think, in my estimation, that it's very important to get more information from a wider variety of sources. Possibly social media has been helpful in this area, because there's more opportunity to get more variety in the presentation, whereas before, where it was just radio, television, then that was it.
Yes.
That's what you had, or if there was some print media that was brought out. So I do feel that overall now there's much more information that is readily there and in more forms, and from professionals in the area, whether it be financial advisors, whether it be lawyers that specialise in this area. So I do feel that there's a lot more out there that's more positive now.
Okay, well that's very good to know. In terms of your experience with retirement villages, now is it just retirement villages? Have you also worked in the land lease community in that space as well?
Yes, I've worked in the land lease area as well.
So obviously that's very popular now also. Yes.
It is very popular now.
Yes.
They're very different.
Yes.
They're a very different presentation.
Yes.
Or offering, let's say. And of course they're also very different as far as legislation goes.
Right.
So my recommendation to people is, whether they're considering either of the options, is they look into it quite deeply, because there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. And but from my point of view, the Retirement Village Act has a lot more protective mechanisms, if you will, and it's also has quite a lot of security, might be a good word for it, to moving forward. One thing that I feel is probably worth mentioning is, when downsizing, it's probably best to do that, or right-sizing, however you like to call it.
I haven't heard that one before.
The financial sector tends to say that, right-sizing.
Yes.
So if you are right-sizing, let's do it once, because it's a very traumatic experience, emotionally and also economically. And the other thing is, moving out of a home that you've been in for 20, 30, I've had people that have been in 50 years in their home, reared their family there, and it's a very, very emotionally charged experience. So I think that it's very important to feel that it's the one move. So, and there's a lot of research in it. It's not something that people do lightly. And again, even the decision itself, just moving from the family home into another environment is quite emotional.
It certainly is a lot going into that. So at Casa Mia, obviously, we're trying to create an environment, or we are creating an environment that is very much a resort style. So somewhere that our residents want to be, that want to live in every day. You did mention earlier about retirement villages and aged care facilities, and there is a bit of a connotation still that retirement villages are aged care facilities, which obviously it's not. The aged care facilities, it's often a forced decision. Would you agree for a lot of people?
And even personally, in my own family, we've had that situation, and certainly with friends and other relatives.
Yes.
It gets to, it happens, and it happens so quickly that they don't get the time to have that research and to go somewhere where they'd like to go, more so than where they're put.
Right, yes.
And everybody wants to make their own decision.
Absolutely.
Especially when it's their home.
Absolutely.
And it's always foremost in my mind that it's someone's home.
Yes.
This is not an institution. It's somebody's home.
Yes, yes. So if someone was looking for a retirement village, I mean, you've obviously worked in many of them, 13, I believe. So you've worked across the board and have a wealth of experience. If someone came to you and said, I'm looking into some retirement villages, how might you advise them of where to look or how to look in terms of comparing different villages or lifestyle villages?
Well, I think the first thing is that the VCD, the Form 3, which they can get from every website.
The village comparison document, yes.
That's a very, very, sorry for the acronym.
No, that's quite all right. I just wanted to clarify, that's all, the village comparison document,
I think
yes.
I got that back to front anyway. But anyway, there we go.
Yes.
We're on the page now. Yes, so those sorts of things they're readily available.
On the
And
websites.
it's a very important thing to look into those, because that's part of what come out of the inquiry. So because before that it was a public information document, which was much more comprehensive and voluminous. So that's a good thing. And then look at the acts. Because it's important to understand
which act
the
is
acts
governing
themselves.
Yep.
Because they aren't, and it's not the Property Act, which is your residential, it's not the aged care. There's the 4 of them all together. So do have a look. In my opinion, it would be a good idea to have a little look into that. And even if family would like to do it with you, that's sometimes a very helpful thing too. Having, sort of younger people looking in, or even grandchildren, really, adult grandchildren looking into it for you. But definitely look into it in depth. It's not just a skim over, because it is quite a bit to understand. And there's quite a lot of differences, and some of them are quite subtle. So yes, to make sure that you get all of them.
Okay, well, that's really good advice, is to always start there. In terms of your experience, what do you think, obviously you know what we're doing at Casa Mia now. Yes. You're standing in as the relief marketing manager for Casa Mia while I'm away.
Yes.
Now, with Casa Mia, obviously we're trying to bring everything together under one roof. We're a resort, we are age in place, and we are bringing something new to the Cairns market. How do you think we compare to what you've seen previously in your experience over the last couple of decades in terms of the services provided?
Yes. The first thing I noticed after hearing the information presentation yesterday by different people within Casa Mia was that it's very holistic, and the other thing is the research and development for it has been so comprehensive that the offering is cohesive. So I look at it holistically, saying, well, yes, the designs are good for the designs are appropriate for the age group that targeting. Well, not targeting, that sounds a bit, sorry everybody. Sounds a bit subtle, not subtle, doesn't it?
That's all right.
The continuum of care, excellent.
Yes.
The other thing that I heard everybody discussing was about the service of actually selling the family home.
Yes.
I find that has a holistic thing. Casa Mia is offering something that's end to end. Maybe that's the easiest way to express it.
Yes.
And when you look at that, it's taking a lot of that out. But the big thing is about that downsizing once, and it looks like that this, at Casa Mia will offer that.
Yes.
Where someone can come in and have that right through to when they no longer need somewhere to live.
Yes, absolutely.
To put it delicately.
It's such an important thing, isn't it, to be able to downsize once? I mean, why would you... I don't know. I mean, maybe you want to downsize 3 or 4 times.
Yes,
but
well, not me.
Yes, no, not me either. I mean, I have a partner who really doesn't like change at all. So getting him to do any sort of sideways motion or upsizing or downsizing is very difficult. So I don't understand why you would want to do it more than once if you can avoid it. So in terms of your experience as well, what have been some of the highlights of your career to date?
Oh, I think there are way too many to count, but the highlights of my career have been the exceptional people that I've had the pleasure of finding a new home for. There, and usually it is their last home, but we're not.
Yes.
It's not. It's not. We used to have a saying. It's probably not politically correct, but it's not God's waiting room. It's not. It's not. We're not. We're there to enjoy life. This is the time. Everybody's that's coming in has lived a life, and they've got that. It's time now for them to have their time in the comfort of their own home with the facilities, should they wish to use them, being there on site and having that continuum of care later, should they get to a situation where they don't have to move again. So whether it's downsizing, we can call that downsizing as well.
Yeah.
They can be in that comfort of their own home. One of the big things I think that will always stick with me is I had one of my residents, well, they weren't my residents, but one of the residents that lived in one of the communities that I looked after, had stage 4 cancer. And they never had to move out. They moved out by passing, but they went to hospital. They were treated. They came home. The occupational therapist came in prior to them. When the diagnosis was done, made sure that the apartment was fully appropriate for them to be in. They were in their own home until they passed. They'd go to hospital, have treatment, and come back. Definitely a highlight there. The longevity was much better. They had a lovely, well, not lovely, but they had their last time part of their life, even though they had a terminal illness, was there, and that was a retirement community, not aged care. So that's priceless. It's absolutely priceless.
To have that community and support while living in your own home.
Absolutely. With their own things around them.
Yes.
So they weren't in a hospital environment or in an aged care facility. They were at their own furniture, their own, everything was their own.
Yes.
And then the RNs would come in and do what they needed to do, and they were in their own home.
Absolutely.
But within their own home, that's not in suburbia or in a residential block of units, because then you've got your renters, you've got your. This is not. It's a community where there isn't any renters, there isn't any crying babies. Not that we don't love babies, but not in the retirement sector. No students. It's a relaxing, comfortable area. Yeah, that's. But probably the exceptional people that I've had the privilege of knowing, and their families.
Yes.
I can't even begin to say how amazing it is. I'd love to write a book about it one day.
Oh, I hope you do.
Yes, well, I better make sure a few more people aren't here so they don't sue me.
I look forward to the book, and we'll talk about it on the podcast when it comes out. So you said you mentioned families as well. So how involved do you find that the families are generally with the residents?
A lot more so in the recent past.
Okay,
a
interesting.
lot more so. And that's what's interesting coming out of, even with social media and that, the families are keeping, are watching it also. Because I believe what's happening now is that they can see how things can change so quickly. So they're making sure, and everybody's busy. So with young children and that, everybody, they've got school and they've got sport and they've got all of those things. So having time for grandparents isn't not that the parents don't have, they don't want to. They want to do it, but they don't have time.